loved flowers. Anything that he planted, it bloomed. He was a boy with a big green thumb. Whatever he planted, he did it with such an intuitive, intimate relatedness with plants. Up came flowers, plants, bushes. He even made English gardeners to shame because he was such a great gardener. And in that kingdom, everyone loved flowers. And when you walk out to the countryside, walk in the village, you could just smell the whole village with sweet perfume. And these people planted flowers of all kinds. Emperor loved birds and animals, but flowers most of all. But this emperor was getting very, very old, and he was concerned about who will come after me. And they didn't have a democratic system like we have here. So he thought and thought and thought, and one day, in his dream, idea popped into his head. And the idea was, a person who can grow the best flower will be the next emperor. So he says, I have it. I got it. Whoever can make the plant grow into a beautiful flowers, I will choose that person to be the next emperor. So he called his crier to make a decree to call all the young children of the land to come to receive seeds from the emperor. And whoever can prove to make most beautiful flower to blossom out of that seed will inherit the throne. So of course, all the children and parents were up in arms, like they were so excited. Oh, my daughter, my son could be the next emperor. So the day came when all the children were to assemble at the courtyard of King's court. And so they all came dressed in finest garbs, and they were instructed to get in line, and each one, when they came forward, the emperor gave a seed, just one seed. But it was all different kinds of seeds, so you don't know what kind it'll blossom until it actually blossoms. So each one got a seed. So Ethan got a seed, Elizabeth got a seed, and other children, each of them got a seed. And they all went back home, and they got a beautiful pot, put the rich soil, and planted the seed. Ping was so excited. He knew that he will make this plant, this seed, to sprout and grow, and when the time comes, it will blossom, most beautiful flower. But months passed, nothing. So he scratched his head. I did everything right. I watered it just right, not too much, because sometimes that will rot the seed. And he put it out into the sun, just right amount, so as to not to get too hot. But whatever he did, it didn't grow. So he says, maybe it's the soil. So he then got the place where he mulched this rich soil and placed it in the pot and replanted the seed that emperor has given him. But month passed, 2 months, 3 months, nothing happens. And so he felt very sad. And he started doubting himself. What's wrong with me? Maybe I am not such a good gardener as I thought I was. And the father saw how sad his son looked. So father came to him and put her arms around his shoulder and says, you know, I've been watching you, Ping. I know how hard and effortful you have tried to grow this seed, but it didn't. But you know what? What's important is that you gave your best. You did your best, and whatever it is, that's good enough for the emperor. So father gave him an encouragement. Well, the day finally came a year later when they were to all show up with what they have grown from the seed they received from the emperor. And so the next picture, oh, there they are. They're all running. They're all running with their beautiful flowers that they grew supposedly from the seeds king gave. And as they were running, they looked at Ping, and one of his best friends says, are you kidding me? You're going to bring your empty pot? Because he was holding an empty pot with nothing to show for. All whole year, his effort, there was nothing to show for. And so he had his head down a bit, but he says, you know, I'm a good gardener, but this is what I have. So next picture. So look at all the children has gathered in the courtyard of the king. And they were all anxiously waiting to show off their beautiful flowers that they have in their pots. And they were hoping and praying that their flowers will be chosen amongst others. Next. So the emperor finally showed up, and all the children were carrying their pots with their beautiful flowers. But the king's face didn't look happy. His countenance looked somber and disappointed. And so children were saying, why is king not happy when I brought this beautiful flower? So he was walking and checking each pot, but he didn't smile. He didn't crack a smile. And he looked at Ping and called him forward. He says, boy, over there, who's holding an empty pot, come forward. So he came forward, and Ping was ashamed. He was ashamed, and he came forward to the emperor with his head bowed down. And King said, what have you brought here? And Ping said, I'm so sorry. I did best I could, and he gave the whole story, what he did. But nothing grew, and this is what I have, and I am so sorry to disappoint you, my emperor. And he started crying. And then he felt the hand on his shoulder, and he looked up, and it was emperor's hand on Ping's shoulder, and Emperor had Ping turn around and face all the children who have gathered in the courtyard. And the emperor said to them, I have found the new emperor who will take my place when I die. And it is this boy named Ping. And he said, I don't know where you got your seeds, but ones that I gave you were all cooked. So nothing would have grown from seeds that I have given you. But this one boy here remained faithful to the instruction that was given to him. And because of his integrity and honesty, I have chosen him. So that's the story. So think about that and talk to your parents and others the meaning of this story. So thank you for all being here. You may now return to your pews.
Weep you no more, sad fountains. What need you flow so fast? Look how the snowy mountains have and sun doth gently waste. But my sons have the eyes, view not your weeping, that now lie sleeping. Softly now, softly lie sleeping, sleeping. Sleep is a reconciling, a rest that peace begets. Doth not the sunrise smiling when fair at evening he sets? Rest you then, rest, sad eyes, melt not in weeping, while she lies sleeping. Softly now, softly lie sleeping, sleeping.
Please stand if you are able for the reading of the Gospel. The book of John, chapter 15, verse 16. You did not choose me, but I chose you, and I appointed you to go and bear fruit, fruit that will last. You may be seated. The book of Ephesians, chapter 1, verses 11 through 12. It's in Christ that we find out who we are and what we are living for. Long before we first heard of Christ, he had his eye on us, had designs on us for glorious living, part of the overall purpose he's working out in everything and everyone. Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. The word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
That we never know how high we are till we are called to rise. And then if we are true to plan, our statures touch the sky. Poem from Emily Dickinson. I'm going to show you 4 examples. These are all current people who are making a difference. The first person that you see here is Boris Bondarev, who is a Russian diplomat at the United Nations. And this month, he came out forward. He's the highest Russian officers and a Russian diplomat who resigned on May 23rd and declared that he was ashamed of his country. And so the Kremlin spokesperson came out to condemn Boris Bondarev, saying, Mr. Bondarev is no longer with us. Rather, he is against us, the enemy of Russia. And that was by Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesperson. The Kremlin has gone to extraordinary lengths to silence this dissent on the war. So anyone who protests the war will be treated as a traitor. And law signed by Mr. Putin in March to punish false information about the war to be up to 15 years in prison. As a result, virtually no government officer has spoken out publicly against the invasion until Mr. Bondarev did it. He says President Vladimir Putin of Russia could have spent the last 2 decades developing the country, making Russia better, but instead turned it into some kind of total horror show, a threat and a pariah of the world. That's a very bold statement coming from Russian official. And this is what he wrote out to the public. Those who conceived this war want only one thing: to remain in power forever. Live in pompous, tasteless palaces, sail on yachts comparable in tonnage and cost to the entire Russian people, enjoying unlimited power and complete impunity. To achieve that, they are willing to sacrifice as many lives as it takes. They got Ukraine wrong. They got the West wrong. They basically got everything wrong. We diplomats of the foreign ministry are also complicit and responsible for this failure, for not passing along the right information that we should have. He was asked, why didn't you step down earlier? And he said that he should have stepped down at least 3 months ago when Russia invaded, but that he had delayed because he had unfinished family business and had things to resolve. And he wrote, I simply cannot any longer share in this bloody, witless, and absolutely needless ignominy. And then he wrote on LinkedIn, after posting his resignation statement, he wrote, job offers are welcome. Well, I think I pray for the safety of he and his family. Hopefully he will find safe haven out of Russia. So because of time, we're going to go past. Next picture, I was going to share a little bit about our San Francisco Golden State Warrior, who has now made it to the finals, championship. And it's going to start this Tuesday. And they're waiting for the winner of the Eastern Conference Finals between Miami and Boston. But he came out and made a scathing attack on the 50 senators who won't pass anything and continuing the slaughter of innocents to happen. I was going to show a clip, but at another time. Next one. He is the San Francisco Giant manager, baseball manager, Gabe Kapler. And he also made a bold statement about why he's not going to come out for singing of the national anthem in protest. That our nation, our country, is no longer a country of brave, he says. And he's not going to come out to celebrate our national anthem when we are in this shameful state where slaughtering of innocent is continuing. So that's that. And the final one is Joan Trumpauer Mulholland, who is a civil rights activist in the 60s who joined the Freedom Riders. Show the next one. So here, this is her mugshot for being arrested for violating the Jackson, Mississippi segregation law, of fighting segregation and racism in the South. So we are going to listen it's about a little over 5 minutes, but it's really well done. And she's an inspiration of what it means to step up to the plate when you're called upon in your life.
Since this famous photo was taken at a Woolworth's lunch counter in Jackson, Mississippi, it shows a sit-in by civil rights activists protesting segregation and the violent reaction that it soon provoked. Some who were there that day still remember, and Elise Preston is here with more on that. Elise, good morning.
Jeff, good morning. Joan Trumpauer Mulholland is a white woman and a Southerner who had to break a long family legacy to become a civil rights pioneer. She endured violence, ostracization, and even prison time. But her courage in demanding change is now an inspiration to others.
With a defiant yet determinedly calm gaze, this decades-old mugshot is what 80-year-old Joan Trumpauer Mulholland jokingly calls her government-issued ID.
When you look back at that girl now, what do you think?
Oh, she wasn't bad looking. I think she got in good trouble.
The great-granddaughter of slave owners, the daughter of a segregationist, Mulholland grew up in a Virginia home where black people were only accepted to fetch and feed.
Growing up, what would your mother tell you about race, tell you about black people?
They were diseased, and you had to be careful going to the bathroom because you might get diseases. And I just couldn't have put it in words then, but I knew when I had a chance to do something to make things fairer, I would do it, and that came with the sit-ins.
Sit-ins, nonviolent protests staged nationwide during the civil rights movement. As a young college student, Mulholland participated in dozens of demonstrations.
People thought you were crazy.
Oh yeah, and some girls in the dormitory quit speaking, and others were slipping us a few dollar bills to help support the movement.
She went on to participate in the Freedom Rides, integrated bus trips throughout the South, which challenged Jim Crow laws to keep blacks and whites separate. Her involvement landed her 2 months in a maximum security prison for breach of peace.
Less than 3 square feet of floor space per prisoner. Things were dirty. and the food was pretty bad, and protein came from the insects.
You were largely thought of as dangerous,
A traitor.
a race traitor.
I was just doing what the Spirit said do, and the movement became like a family. We always had each other's back.
This iconic photo, snapped on May 28, 1963, shows the violence that family endured while trying to integrate a Woolworth's lunch counter in Jackson, Mississippi.
Memphis Norman was being pulled off his stool and kicked severely, and the girls were pulled down. It quickly became obvious that I would be safer sitting on the empty stool where Memphis had been than I would in the crowd.
Her faith blocked fear, and constant reminders of the dangers the protester and freedom rider faced surround the now grandmother's home.
I had a copy of my birth record, which was good for if you have to identify a body. If someone gets killed, it's a form of identity.
Even in all that, you weren't afraid.
No. I figured the Lord will see you through.
Joan's son Loki is the founder and executive director of the Joan Trumpauer Mulholland Foundation, which hopes to wipe out racism through education.
Do you feel that your foundation and organizations that exist like it, do you think that they're needed even more now?
The shooting in Buffalo proves it.
We spoke with the family just days after the racially motivated attack in Buffalo.
As it was happening, my mother and the other Freedom Riders were on stage in Anniston, Alabama, talking about the Freedom Rides and talking about the bus that was bombed. I got back to the hotel. My mind was just on this going, what more should I have done? What more do I need to do?
For Mulholland, that work should be done by everyone, those wise with gray hair and the young and passionate with bright eyes.
I'm happy I did it. I had the opportunity, and friendships we made back then are good to the end, but more and more ends are coming.
Now, Joan Trumpauer Mulholland's life is expected to be the center of a feature film produced by award-winning actor Anthony Mackie. The family says the film is in development right now, but hopes it will be done at some point next year, which is the 60th anniversary of many civil rights movement events. And what a life, what a story to tell.
Gosh. And that her mother, what she learned, we talk about learning hate, but what her mother taught, she didn't take, and she still found this path.
She didn't take, and she started out as a freshman at Duke and said that when she first started participating in these sit-ins, college administrators wanted her to undergo a psychiatric evaluation. That's just how much the community did not believe in what she was doing.
And she's, oh my gosh, she's a sorority member, Delta Sigma Theta. Her son is an Omega Psi Phi fraternity member.
Yes,
amazing.
They surround themselves with people who, everyone. When we were leaving, I looked at her and I said, "Thank you for everything that you did." And she replied, "I did it for all of us," which definitely shows that, when people are not equal, everyone is harmed.
Amazing, amazing job. What a wonderful story. Thank you.
So grateful for people like that keeps the flame of God's truth and courage and hope alive. What really moved me was that even though she grew up in a cultural milieu that normalized segregation and devalued black people, that all that, in that milieu, something in her moral soul, she sensed something was not right. And she did not listen to her mother's value about black people. And she embodied the definition of courage, which is to go against rest of your community says it's wrong. When her moral compass told her that you are right, the community is wrong. And she stood up against that. And as humans, as social creatures, we need validation and affirmation and acceptance from your community. And for her to forego that and stand on the truth, what an inspiration. She is taught us what courage looks like. Amen.